Hello. So I want to start out by saying thank you to my commenters on my last video. I really appreciate your comments. Um, yeah, I think I sound retarded. Um, Yet I guess I don't really. It's when I'm talking that I think I sound really like incoherent, and I say retarded, but just I feel like I don't make sense. Um, but I guess not, because surprisingly people listen to my videos and are commenting on them. And then when I listen back to my videos, which I do that sometimes, in the beginning I couldn't do that, but I was listening back to them a little bit, and it's weird. It's like I sound kind of coherent. So surprising to me, really. Just my own perception. I just feel like I don't make any sense. But I wanted to say thank you to my commenters. There were some nice comments. I will respond to them partly. I don't really know if I could respond to everything, but there were some nice things said. And one of them said that I was brave, and I really appreciated that, because I made that video and it was like, it's not easy to do. I was talking about trauma-related hypersexuality. It's like a really tough topic to talk about, to be honest. So that was nice, and there was other parts to the comment as well, which I appreciated, and another one was someone else was saying about how they had a struggle as well, similarly, and I also appreciate that. And then one was talking about some different techniques to use, and I looked into one of the techniques, and it was a Tao or Qi Gong technique, and I'm actually hesitant and careful about that kind of stuff. I appreciate the comment, but the thing is that I believe in stuff like that. It's just the only thing is that I'm not sure if some of that stuff is evil or not, and because of that, I have a hesitation with some of this other stuff concerning Qi, which Qi is like talks about energy. I have an interest, but I also have I guess a prudence, like a discernment as well. I'm kind of careful about stuff like that, because I believe that stuff is real. Like, I believe these different things are real. The distinction I make is that I'm not sure all of them are good. Do you know what I mean? Specifically because I'm a Christian. So, but I appreciate the comments nonetheless. And yeah, even that Jew keeps commenting on my videos, and I say Jew not as really like a derogatory term, but just as a descriptor. This is a Jewish person, and they really don't like my videos, and they keep arguing continually, like, watching them and continuing to argue. So, that tells me that this person is checking back to see what else is going on, and I do put in the title something referencing them, so I'm sure that would, if they were to check back and see that, I'm sure they would click on it, but and they have, but I mean, it is irritating, but also at the same time, it's kind of giving me a reason to learn more and sharpen my arguments, because basically this Jewish person is making lies and also reporting the videos, and trying to say that I have a theological hatred of Jews, which is weird, because that's completely the opposite of what I was saying. I was saying that Jews are enemies as Christians, which a lot of Christians don't really realize, but that's the point I'm trying to make, and I'm giving evidence for that. I'm saying that Jews are enemies as Christians, but that we still have to love them. because that's what Christ instructed us to do, is to love our enemies. So yeah, and my point is, it's like hard actually to love your enemies. It's not actually easy. And I'll speak more about love as well. So I was praying about I was asking Jesus to help me to love more. Like, what does that look like? What does that even mean? What would that actually be? And so I went to church today, and then it was a good service. It's always a good service. It's an Orthodox church, and the singing is the best part. It's a worship service, and it feels more directly connected to God, and that's the point of church. Actually, it's worship. That's actually, I believe that's the point of life. Actually, personally, I believe that's the point of life. I just think maybe it looks different for different people and what they do, but that's really the purpose almost of being alive, is to love God with all your heart, mind, strength, and soul. And then, I think Jews believe that as well. But then Jesus, which Jews don't believe in, by definitionally, they don't believe in Jesus. They think he's a heretic. But Jesus came and he said that, he restated that greatest commandment, and then he said that another is like it: love your neighbor, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Or he might have just said love your neighbor, or love one another. But the point is to love other people. So the whole idea is, what does that look like? Because our society is basically degenerating. I live in Canada. Everything is getting worse. Like, people kind of know this on some level, but at this point I say that people are essentially split into different realities. And I could go deeper into what that actually means, but yeah, everything is kind of getting worse, and less coherent as well, and less cohesive. But so the point is, like, well, what does it look like? Because I've heard different things from different people, especially as it regards love, and it's kind of it's a tricky one, because I don't think that everybody from the third world has to come to white Western countries. I think that Jesus can also go there. Like, some people say that, oh, you're supposed to love everybody, aren't you? Well, it's not very loving to have a border. It's not very loving to try to deport people. It's not very loving, etc., etc. So using that as kind of like a justification, I guess you could say, for like extreme amounts of immigration. That's just one example, but I just don't agree with that, because I say Jesus didn't come to destroy the law or to break the law. He came to fulfill it. So I think that the message of love and the spiritual message, like from Jesus, it supersedes, or it's above the law. And I'll read a verse from the book of Sirach. I think it says it in here, but I was reading the book of Sirach. Is it Sirach or Sirach? But I'll talk about that a little bit more. But so at church we had this service, and then there's like there's a part in there that kind of triggers me in a sense. I don't know how else to say it without using the word trigger, but it's just it's kind of like an emotional trigger, like, and it's when the priest faces the congregation, because a lot of the time he's actually worshiping God and not even really talking that audibly so that we could hear him, but he turns around at one point, and it's a mix. He does talk to the congregation at some points, but he turns around and he says, "Forgive me, brothers and sisters." And that part for me, it kind of it's like has like an emotional trigger point for me. But and then so then we have fellowship after, where you go, into the church basement and you talk to people, and they have a meal there, and it's very nice, and I really like it. It's legitimate community, and it's really nice. Something that's extremely rare. It feels, for the most part, within our society, it feels, like community has faded quite a bit. But so I was talking to all these different people, and it's really nice. Like, I enjoy the conversations, and we had a great conversation, I felt. But I said at the end, I said, "I love you. Have a good week." And I said that to a few people, and gave them a handshake. And it was easy to say at the time. So thanks be to God, because that's kind of what I've been looking for, or hoping for, is to be more loving. That's actually the point. That's like what theosis is. It's like you're supposed to transform to be like God. That's the point of Orthodoxy, I believe, and Orthodox Christianity. And yeah, so I said that to a few people. I said that to like two guys. I think they were a bit younger than me. I'm 30, but and then one woman who is much older. I think she'd be like a baby boomer, or maybe Gen X. I'm not sure, but yeah. So that happened. I do get, I do have like worries about it. Oh yeah, and I said I love you to the priest when I was leaving as well. And I just say, like, I love you, have a good week, My worries are like, and these have been my worries forever, basically. It's like, I don't want it to feel weird. That's the main thing, And in my family, it was kind of weird as well. And also, nobody really said I love you, and then and yeah, it didn't really make sense as to what love kind of was, or what should feel like. So in the Bible, it describes it somewhere. It's supposed to be like easy and gentle and something like this, but at least as I know it, or as I understand it, in the Garden of Eden, free will is necessary for love to exist. So you have to be able to have the choice to choose to love somebody else. Otherwise, it's not love by definition. So it's a distinction between power and force. Yeah. Now, obviously, you can say I love you and it not be true, or be saying it like a lie or something like that. But I guess that's where everything has gotten screwed up in the first place, really. Is the definition has been lost or forgotten or something like that, or it's not widely practiced, basically. And at this point, there's like not goodwill among men, there's bad will among men in society. At least we're around where I am. And partly it is because if you say something to somebody like I love you, that people don't know how to really react. And the people I said it to, they were, quite gracious. They just said you too, or something like that. I can't even really remember, but yeah, anyway, kind of ranting, but yeah, so, but I would say thanks be to God. And when people have told me in my life, I love you, I remember it, actually, and I appreciate it. So that's happened, a few times where I could really remember it specifically. And one of them, it was actually the first time I met somebody, and well, it was like it was actually a therapist that I was trying to see, but one of the first things he said to me was that he's like, I love you, and he's kind of said, because, you know, he's a Christian. So I really remembered that. Anyway, whew. Yeah, so I do have worries, but it's what Jesus commands, so I'm trying to follow Jesus's commandment, because as we understand it as Christians, that's actually a commandment from God. So, yeah. So I actually broke down crying a few times today, and it's kind of embarrassing to say all this stuff, but I don't care too much. I think it's almost kind of good in a sense to just share it. But I broke down crying a few times today, and it's just kind of like sharp pains, and then cry for like a little bit, and then it'll be over, and then there'll be like a reverberation later. And this has to do with how energy works, and basically like energy is kind of like a wave. So yeah, it's actually important to cry or to just express an emotion that you're feeling. The reason why is because if you suppress it, if you don't feel it, you basically cannot, you're limiting yourself to feel good later on. So it is important. And I understand why people, hold their emotions in, typically for social reasons and for protective reasons. So I get it, I understand. But yeah, I just broke down crying at home, so it wasn't such a big deal. But I was gonna say something else. I forgot. Oh, okay. So it was kind of related to the video I made yesterday, and I was talking about this story about this like sexual abuse that happened to me when I was very young, and that that kind of like really triggered me. And then, although again, I think it's important to kind of work through these things by recounting them and allowing yourself to work through the emotion, but in that way you take the charge out of it, but the charge out of the story. But oh yeah, the part that kind of really triggered me was that I had told my mom, but she ignored it, or wasn't really helpful, or was able to help. So that part really triggered me, I'd say. Yeah. Yeah, so that's tough. And then the other thing is also the forgive me, brothers and sisters, at the church from the priest. That for some reason is very triggering to me, but I will relate now to what it says in the Old Testament. If you read through it, there's a lot of weeping that happens, and so I actually, I kind of think like it must have been way different. Like people must have been much different with their emotions and how they, like, what they cared about them, or if they cared or not. Like, so yeah, there was a lot of weeping. Like, I'm thinking specifically of the story of Joseph. He gets separated from his brothers, and then when they reunite, they're like weeping. And yeah, there's a lot of like weeping when people reunite and stuff like that. Or yeah, there's a lot of mourning, and yeah, but yeah, so, but there's also a lot of rejoicing. And throughout it all, I think that the faith aspect is always the most important, right? The feelings, they come, they go, but the faith is always the most important. That's what's like the anchor through the rocky storm, and the feelings are like the caboose. They come at the end, if they come at all, I guess. But anyway, oh, okay. So the reason that I think I find it really hard to have emotions is because I it's like I would get punished actually. um, for having emotions when I was younger, and the punishment was actually kind of weird because um, it was like if I had emotions, other people couldn't handle them. That's how it was, or how it felt at least. So in that way, it was like it's like scary. You know what I mean? So or it's too much or overwhelming or whatever. But just to have emotions, it's like it upset people. You know, specifically my mom. I think it would upset her, or um, uh, like I told this story before, but at one point when I was 17, my uncle left. He had taken me to another province to go mountain biking, and we were staying at my aunt and uncle's house. You know, a different aunt and uncle, and my other uncle had taken us there to go mountain biking, and then he just left like at one point and didn't tell anybody. He left in the middle of the night, and it's like he left like, you know, a 25-hour drive. He left me like a 25-hour drive away. And then my auntie came and she was just saying like, you know, your uncle left, but she was kind of like really, it was weird. She was like, he's gone. I don't know where he is. Like, he's just gone. It's like, why don't you guys have this figured out? You know what I mean? Or like are able to deal with this. And she was like putting a lot of the stress on me, because she started talking about how much we love you, and so I started crying, and I don't know if she started crying too, but it was like her emotions were like too much for me, you know. So yeah, it gets to be like too much, seriously. And this is a huge reason why I don't really say too much stuff, or at least I used to not say much in social situations, because it was like I always don't want to make other people upset, basically, or at least I didn't. But yeah, it can be really hard, because then it limits you to be to say what you really think, and so on and so forth. But anyway, and I will say again, and I feel like I'm kind of belaboring or whatever, but this is something else that I notice that happens, is that, you know, if I allow myself to be upset, sometimes what happens is that if I allow myself to be like upset, or even to start crying in front of somebody else, which, you know, rarely I done until more recently, and only in really the appropriate setting, I think, like, you know, in a therapy setting or something like that. But what I noticed is that people who I'm with, they'll, you know, start intellectualizing or something. Intellectualizing is like trying to be very logical, and they, you know, they switch into like the logic part of their brain, and they start talking a lot. If I'm upset or something, and it's just annoying. Like, the way you're supposed to act if somebody is really upset, and unless you really know them well, you might know what to do, but more specifically, but the best thing to do is to let them express their emotion. You know what I mean? Don't smother them. And then, when they're finished, and it's like, it only lasts for like 90 seconds or something, like, and then there's reverberations again later on, like there will be more tears or something, within a time period afterward. It's kind of like it'll fade out. It's like a wave. It's like a big wave, and then it'll fade out into ripples. But you just pass them a tissue box, or you don't really have to say much. You know what I mean? So some people, it's like some people think that it's like their big moment to say something super wise or to like whatever, but it's kind of annoying. Like, you know what I mean? I'd rather they just like be there and kind of be supportive. So, and I've not been perfect at doing that in the past as well. So, yeah. Anyway, okay, so, I'll say something funny actually that happened today. So, when I was talking to these different people in the church, the one we were talking about, like, one guy was saying that he was in the washroom, and that there was like, I guess it was like, telling you not to disrespect women on the wall or something. And he was kind of saying like he didn't like that. And the other guy said it was like, wow, is there a castration machine in the bathroom too? I just think that was so funny. But basically my point though, what I was saying, I think before that, I was saying, we live under, in a gerontocracy and a gynocracy. Of course, above that, it's like a Jewish oligopoly, or sorry, not oligopoly, oligarchy. But and it's possible that there's something else going on above that, but I don't really think so. I think it's something to that effect. But at the very, you could say top, it's the devil. Like it's evil. Their worship, like at the very center of all these, what you could say, rings of power, that's the devil. People making deals with the devil, worshiping the devil. So it's very evil. But I was saying how we live in like a gerontocracy is like ruled by the old, and you just have to really look at Congress in the U.S. to understand that. But also know that the baby boomer population, it's very aging, and has a huge amount of influence on decisions that get made. And then the other thing is that, and this was kind of like the point I was trying to make, was that well, it's actually, in large part, it's women who kind of call the shots or run things through influence, but they're also controlled. So that's why I say it's like a Jewish oligarchy at the top or close to the top. But it's like inputs that are used on these different rings essentially, but they're different parts of a story, and some of them are false stories, and they're kind of like plans as well. So, well, in the center it is a plan. And I know that some people might think that sounds very, very crazy, but a lot of this stuff is published. You can actually look up. You can look up some of these things. I think Changing Images of Man is one of the propaganda books, and then Paradise Lost by John Milton, I think, as well, is they're sort of like the stories that these elites kind of follow. So anyways, but I'm not going to say I'm very well versed or anything, but yeah, um, yeah. Anyway, yeah. No, my point was just that men are basically very henpecked by women. So if you can control the women, then you kind of can control the men as well, because men sort of nerf their political opinions around women, or depending on who they're around, men will self censor and not say what they're really thinking. And this happens a lot. Like, a lot of people do this, and the effect is actually, it's just, speech is chilled. They call this chilled speech. It's like we have free speech, but people are afraid to say stuff. And I've heard this, in various forms, but a lot of people think about their cell phone listens to everything they say, which is true. And a lot of people, they think about losing their job, or their social repercussions in their friend group, or familial repercussions if they say something. But yeah, so yeah. Anyway, that's just kind of where we're at. That's my point. And I also think it's strange because, like, I say that's where we're at, but it's strange because a lot of people cannot even agree on what is going on. So I find that to be very strange as well. But that's kind of the point too, is that it's like a flood, or like an endless amount of media and what feels like an immense amount of books and everything else, and then things conflict and they become very difficult to understand. And yeah, it can be very, very tricky. But yeah, so because is like the first, it's like almost like the first steps, right? And that's kind of like how sometimes when you talk to people, they're always trying to explain stuff, but first you need to kind of like know what's going on. But from there, it's like time continues to move, like time continues to happen. And so from there, it's like, well, what ought we to do? That's the whole is ought distinction between or from David Hume. It's called Hume's guillotine. So a lot of people talk about what is, but there's also kind of like this idea about, well, what ought we be doing, right? And it can get kind of confusing because when you mix together all of these different worldviews, especially faith views, they have very differing opinions on what we should be doing. And some of them, they try and shift everything to is, right? And I understand this. It's it can become a very high level conversation, but yeah, I believe that we do have to be living in a certain way. So that's why I read the Bible. And I started reading the book of Sirach, so I will read that out. And before I do that, I wanted to show I got my EMF meter. This is the Tri-Field EMF meter model TF2. It was kind of expensive. It came to like $300. I bought it on Amazon, 300 Canadian. But essentially, it can detect electromagnetic frequency and radio frequencies. So I've been testing it out, and if you turn it on, it just gives you a readout. And what I did was I turned on my phone, and so I tested my phone. I don't know if I can really show, but here the phone is off, or it's the screen is dark. and then I was testing it, and I have it set to the radio frequency test, and it gives like a frequency you can tell while it's the screen is dark. But if I turn it on and I play a YouTube video,
and how much do they weigh? Where
so,
the largest bee on the planet
random
is,
video,
and what it looks like. How bees find their way home. What would happen to humanity if bees disappeared? And finally, what do bees do in winter? Bees. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new videos and see more educational content in your feed.
So as you can see, it was getting really high peaks and change, like a big amount of electromagnetic frequency when I was playing the video. And if I switch it to standard magnetic, and I test that again, so here it is with the screen black. So there is magnetic frequency coming off of here. But if I play the video,
in the dark, abandoned barn, we live next door to a civilization that outnumbers humanity.
So you get much higher readout. Now, I will say that it's a difficult thing to understand and interpret. So I'm still at the understanding and interpreting phase. So far, though, I've read some studies where I understood, at least from my knowledge of how to read a scientific paper, I was looking at these different studies and I was seeing that this stuff is actually bad for us. It does have health effects. It does impact your mitochondria. It impacts your neurotransmitters. It'll decrease your dopamine. It'll decrease or change around different neurotransmitters in your brain, which will have then behavioral effects later on. And so I understood that much. And so I got the meter and I've been testing stuff, and I've also ordered, the EMF canopy to at least enclose my bed, but I just recognized that this stuff is actually really bad for us, and we're bathing in it all the time. Okay. So now I'm gonna read from the Wisdom of Sirach from the Orthodox Study Bible. So I'm going to read number 1. Wisdom is from the Lord. All wisdom comes from the Lord, and is with him forever. Who can count the sand of the seas, the drops of rain, and the days of eternity? Who can search out the height of heaven, the breadth of the earth, the abyss, and wisdom? Wisdom was created before all things, and the insight of prudence was from eternity. To whom has the root of wisdom been revealed? And who has come to know her great deeds? There is one who is wise and is feared exceedingly, he who sits upon his throne. The Lord himself created wisdom. He saw and numbered her and poured her out on all his works, in the midst of all flesh according to his gift, and he provided her for those who love him. The fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is glory and boasting, and gladness and a crown of rejoicing. The fear of the Lord will cheer the heart, and will give gladness, joy, and long life. For those who fear the Lord, it shall be well to the utmost, and on the day of his death he will be blessed. The beginning of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and she was joined with the faithful in the womb. She constructed a foundation of life among men, and will be trusted among their seed. The gratification of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and she intoxicates them with her fruits. She will fill every house of theirs with objects of desire, and their storehouses with her harvest. The fear of the Lord is the crown of wisdom, making peace and soundness of health to flourish. The Lord saw and numbered her, and poured out the power of comprehension. And he exalted the glory of those who hold fast to her. The root of wisdom is to fear the Lord, and her branches are length of days. Warnings to the wise. Unjust anger cannot be justified, for anger's decisive influence causes his fall. A patient man will hold fast until the proper time. Then afterwards gladness shall burst forth for him. He shall conceal his words until the proper time, and the lips of many will tell of his understanding. In the treasures of wisdom are the parables of knowledge, but godliness is an abomination to a sinner. If you desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord will supply it to you. For the fear of the Lord is wisdom and instruction, and his good pleasure is faith and gentleness. Do not disobey the fear of the Lord, and do not come to him with a divided heart. Do not be a hypocrite in the sight of men, and be careful with your lips. Do not exalt yourself, lest you fall and bring dishonor to your soul. The Lord shall reveal your secrets, and in the midst of the assembly he will strike you down, because you did not come in the fear of the Lord, and your heart was full of deceit. So, thanks be to God. I really appreciate the book of Sirach so far. It was recommended by Jay Dyer. And I appreciate where it says in here that do not come to the Lord with your heart divided. So that tells me to be more pure in my heart, basically, which is actually really hard, I will say. So yeah, I'm still working on that. I'm still praying on that. But yeah, and fear of the Lord, that's very important. A lot of people talk about love. I don't think enough people talk about fear. That you actually have to love the Lord, but also fear the Lord. So it's both. And the thing is that people just have fear. Like, this is a thing. People are afraid. But what should we really be afraid of? The Lord. Be afraid of God. And also love God. So that's really the most important thing. And yeah, so I also thought it was interesting where it said that unjust anger cannot be justified. That makes sense. So yeah, because there should be a justification for anger. And yeah, we're kind of taught, at least I was taught, you just basically cannot be angry ever. That's kind of what I was taught. You're not allowed to be angry ever. But there are a lot of things that I think make people angry. And yeah, is it just? I think probably yes, some of it is just, but yeah, it would be hard to figure out exactly what. You'd have to think about the specific example, but yeah, so I really appreciate that.